Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about Kubernetes Components. It's an open source tool and developed by Google. And let's move on a little bit in depth. Okay, when developer develops an application, uh, it will be packed all into a container. The container is nothing but inside container we have all the necessary library dependencies and libraries. Okay, once we containerize the application, we try to deploy into any of the cloud or on-premises or private cloud using any orchestration tools. We are going to use Kubernetes orchestration tool, which going to help us zero downtime, and it will scale down, and it will take care about the load balancer. Okay, and we are going to see some of the components in Kubernetes. Okay, let imagine this is a node which is nothing but kind of a server. Inside a node we can have a number of ports. Ports is nothing but an, a component in Kubernetes. Okay, and inside the port we can have a number of containers, which is the containers. Okay, containers. Okay, the one of the component in Kubernetes is deployment. Deployment is nothing but uh, it's kind of a blueprint. When we create, we are going to mention how many replica of the ports we need in our server, and it will take care about we have to mention scale up and scale down. A lot of information will be in deployment. And if it is a stateful application which has a database, then we need to use the component of StatefulSet. Okay, because it's not possible for database to replicate. When we use the StatefulSet component, it is possible for the database application to replicate. Okay, replicate it's nothing but like replication factor of same replication factor of another node with same ports ports which contain number of containers. Okay, and for the database information will be built, and if something goes in the port, and we will be losing the configuration of the database in the ports. So for that, we Kubernetes has the config map as a component. In the config map, we will be mentioning all the database information stuff, kind of like username, password of database, and some certificate information. It's not good practice to mention database username and password in config map, so that there is another component in Kubernetes, especially to mention some secret information, which will be stored in base 64 encoded format. Okay, and in Kubernetes, it won't support data persistency for the to store the data. It's the the component name is volume. We can attach the volume we can attach the volume to the port as a local or remote or external hard drive for the storage purpose. This the another component in Kubernetes is service, which service. I'll explain you a little bit. If this two ports want to talk each other, for example, to talk each other, it should have some communication through some IP. So if it has this port has some IP address and this port has some IP address, if the port A crashes, it is difficult to communicate with port B. Again, it has to replace another port and it should assign new IP address. So to overcome the problem, Kubernetes has service as a component. The service is nothing but it is a permanent IP address. So we don't need to change any of the endpoints for the service. Okay. Mm, I hope you're getting the point what I'm trying to say. And finally, if the user is trying to access the application, he need to try with HTTPS slash with some domain name .com. It, it is only possible when we use Ingress. Ingress is nothing but it will receive the request from the user and forwards to the service which is assigned for each port. Okay, and if you don't use Ingress, we need to go for like we can access the application using IP plus port numbers. So this can be used for a development purpose, but not for in the real-time production. I think you got a little bit overall information. Let's go in depth in diagrammatic way. Okay. Okay. First, I said like in deep, it's Kubernetes component. Kubernetes is an orchestration tool which is used for the deployment of a container. Okay, um, the stateful set been used for uh, when we are using stateful application. It's kind of like when we use databases application. Okay, if you don't want to keep database inside the Kubernetes, we can mention our database outside the Kubernetes and rest of the functions inside the Kubernetes, which makes easier for implementation and maintenance of the application. The config map and secret will be inside a pod. Okay. The inside pod it has config map and secret, so that if this pod wants to contact the port B, which is a database, and the config map has the URL of database communication, and the secret has the um, password as some confidential information like password and certification of database communication. And volume is nothing but Kubernetes does not support data persistency, so we need a volume should be attached locally or remotely to the ports. And the service I said before, like to communicate each other to ports, it need a services, and the service is nothing but it has a permanent IP address. So in case the port destroys, it doesn't need to change any IP address. It just replace the another port and communicate and start communicating with another service. And service take care. And one more thing, service will take care about the load balance, and it will take the request from Ingress. Depends on the request, it will look for the ports which are available, and it will redirect to the uh, another folder for the request. And Ignis is kind of used for external purpose, and it receives the request from the users and forwards to the server. If you don't use the Ignis, it's not possible to access using the proper domain name by the your users. I hope everyone understand about the Kubernetes components. Thank you. If you have any doubt, please leave a comment below.